Good morning and welcome back to this Falling Walls conversation. I'm Charlotte Stoddart. I'm a science filmmaker and podcaster, making content for Nature and other science magazines. And I'm the moderator for this conversation with Anna Lamp. First, a few technical notes for those who are new to the format. We have 25 minutes, and you in the digital audience are very welcome to ask questions at any point. So if you have a question, please use the raise hand function in Zoom, and one of our technical team will spotlight you when it's your turn to ask the next question. And then you just need to wait for me to let you know it's time to speak. If you've got technical difficulties at any point, you can let us know in the chat in Zoom, and one of our technical team will try to help you. This conversation is being recorded and will be available on the Falling Walls website later after the Science Summit. Okay, let's meet Anna Lamp. Anna is founder and CEO of a startup called Traceless, which is hoping that its novel biodegradable material will replace some single-use plastics. She's an environmental scientist, a tech enthusiast from a young age, and also now an entrepreneur. And we'll talk about how you managed to combine those things, I hope, in a bit. She's also the Breakthrough Prize winner in the category of Science Startup, and that was announced just last night. So congratulations, Anna.
Thank you.
First of all, please tell us about this new material that you came up with. What's it made of, and how did you come up with the idea for it?
So the material that we developed is a novel material that is holistically sustainable in all impact indicators. That means it is based on non-food resources, bio-based, and in the end it is also fully degradable in nature, so leaving no trace, no microplastics or plastics, hence the name Traceless. And also during the production of this novel base material, we are very energy efficient and we don't produce any harmful wastewaters and so on, so very environmental friendly.
It sounds wonderful. What is it actually made of? What are the ingredients that go into it?
So we use byproducts of the agricultural industry. So every year, millions and millions of tons of these byproducts are produced, like, for example, leftovers from beer production, leftovers from starch production, leftovers from ethanol production. All these byproducts are usually used for either cattle feed or for energy production.
And what were you doing when you came up with this idea?
So I did this in my PhD, in the research phase of my PhD. I was doing research on the field of biorefinery. That's the field called when you take byproducts and you develop processes how to convert these byproducts into valuable products for the material applications or for bio-based chemical applications. So this was the basic research I did in my PhD, and as a side project, I now discovered this process and developed that further.
And was it your idea to take that further and to found a startup and try and commercialize it? It seems like quite a brave thing to do, especially if you only just finished your PhD.
Yes, true. So I must admit that, especially in Germany, the education system doesn't encourage you to found a startup. Let's put it that way. So during my studies or also doing my PhD, I never thought of founding a startup, because everything that, or your biggest aim is always with a master degree or with a PhD, you will have a good position in a corporate, right? But then with the Traceless process, it kind of just happened. And I think there were a lot of external influencing factors, like other entrepreneurs telling me that has potential. Have you ever thought of founding a startup? No, I didn't. Okay, so let's think about that. It was a transformation also in the mind, but in the end, yeah, it just felt good.
And you've mentioned that being a scientist you require a very different mindset from that, especially in Germany, from the mindset that you need to be an entrepreneur. So could you just talk a bit about that and how you transformed yourself from scientist to entrepreneur?
Yes, that was a very interesting transformation, and still I mean, I still call myself a scientist from the mindset. I think that's also important in some aspects, especially if you have a science-based startup. But still, adding these entrepreneurship skills took time and was a development. In the end, it came with the co-founder that I found. So I, at a certain point, realized, okay, I have the technical expertise about the process and so on, but now I also need the business expertise. And that's when I found my co-founder. Also a different story, how we met each other by occasion. But now I think we're a perfect match because she brings all the business expertise and how to scale up a small company, and I bring the technology in the process.
And is that sort of one of the pieces of advice that you would give other scientists who are in your position to find someone who knows about the business side of things?
Definitely. So I would suggest to find people that have complementary expertise. And I think that's what makes us also very strong, that we have expertise in our fields, and they're completely opposite. So we can cover a wide range of fields and tasks. I would definitely suggest that, because as a scientist, you have a different mindset. You think, I thought, as a scientist, when you did a PhD, often you are a perfectionist. So you want to improve your product or your process, whatever, until it's perfect, no matter how long it takes, because that's how PhD works. I mean, it's also important to deep dive. But then when you want to bring something to market, it's often too late when you perfectionize your product and then go out, hi, world, this is my product now. Do you want that? And then world says, no, we are there already, but nice that you did it. So that was really a learning for me, and that also brought in, or my co-founder brought in that way of thinking that it doesn't matter if we are not like 100% yet, but we need to start talking to the market, to the partners, to the investors and so on. We need to start communicating with the world about it. And I think that's a learning that many scientists need to have. Yeah.
And what other expertise did you need to bring into the team to be able to sort of start commercializing your material?
Many different expertises. In the beginning, I heard a phrase from another founder or another entrepreneur saying, as a founder, you need to fire yourself every single day. And that's totally true, because there's so much work to do, and when you have a company, that you need to have the right people with the right expertises in all the fields. And it was, for example, we need to scale the technology, like we need to build plants, and therefore we hired our head of technology, and he did a great job taking over that part. I mean, I could have also deep dived into that, but it's not my main expertise, and I needed someone who's really an expert in that. Or the material development, like the polymer chemistry, we have one, or the design aspect and the marketing. So for all these different fields where you really need expertise, you need to find the right people to take that work off.
And how close are you now to me being able to go into a shop and see one of your materials being used perhaps in some packaging?
So we are about to open up our first pilot plant, producing this material in a larger quantity, and that's the first hurdle, of course. We need to have material for bringing it into the market. Now, so far we were working on lab scale. So we will bring first products with our first customer, Otto, to the market next year, and also relatively small quantities, but still delivery bags for e-commerce shopping. So that's our first application. We are also working on many different other products already in prototype development projects with customers. And when these are finished, we will also go with them into pilot phases and bring products to the market. But in the end, it is a matter of price. So to be really in large quantities in the market, we need to produce the material also in large quantities, and therefore we need to scale the technology. But on the way going there, we will do first market pilots, like with 10,000 pieces or 100,000 pieces. That's, for the plastic industry, that's nothing. But yeah, so that we will do on the way until we get to the industry plant.
Mm-hmm. And I guess you're mostly at the moment just selling in Germany, but do you have ambitions to try to sell in other countries too?
Of course. I mean, the plastic pollution is a global problem, and especially in other countries than Germany. I mean, also here we're not free from plastic pollution, but on a global scale, 40% of all plastic waste ends up in the environment. So yeah, we especially need to go in these countries where that happens.
And are there many competitors in this field? Are there other kinds of biodegradable material that are sort of trying to sell in the same space as you?
Yes, of course. So we need to differentiate between the classical bioplastics that are not really degradable in nature. So when they end up in the ambient conditions, then nothing really happens. And the startups or the companies that do the same approach like us, like using the natural polymers, the natural compounds to produce plastics. And there are many other startups also starting in that field. And I always say, actually, we need all of them because there are 400 million tons of plastic produced every year. And I think the classical bioplastic market is like 1 or 2 million tons per year. So we need to do a lot to substitute the plastics in these single-use items. And therefore, we need all the materials. And also these other startups, they are doing the same approach, but not chemical-wise the same. So it's also interesting for us to combine the materials, actually.
That's very generous. So rather than kind of being worried by these competitors, you actually welcome them.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, our biggest hurdle is that if one customer comes and says, okay, I want to switch to your material and use only that, we must say, okay, we don't have the quantities. So even if we scale up to our industry scale, there's so many customers, there's so much potential for customers to get this material.
I know that you're passionate about something called Cradle to Cradle design. I wonder if you could explain what that means and how you used that concept in the design of your material.
Yes, so already during my studies of process engineering, I was wondering what could I do with these studies? And I realized that I don't want to go the classical way of linear production, take, make, waste, and contribute to the problems that we have. Because actually, as an engineer, I would then contribute and be the problem. So I found this cradle to cradle concept, and this is basically not working from cradle to grave, but from cradle to cradle. So designing the products that we produce in a way that they can be recycled, but truly recycled afterwards, either technically or biologically. And so I started, there's an NGO, the Cradle to Cradle NGO, founded 7-8 years ago. And I, during that time, I also joined that group and started the Cradle to Cradle regional group in Hamburg and led that group. And the aim was to educate the people, the society, about this mindset, about this way of thinking about products and material cycles, so that in the end this concept becomes available for everyone, and that everyone thinks in that concept.
And you mentioned earlier that when you're doing a PhD in Germany, as you did, that you're really not encouraged to think about commercializing products or going into sort of an entrepreneurial role, founding a startup. How do you think that that could be encouraged more?
Yes, so especially I think from the side of the universities. I think that in when you compare it, for example, to the US, PhDs or students are told, like, every second one of you is for sure founding a startup, and that's the fact. So a lot of graduates found startups, I mean, either successful or not, but this mindset of I can actually create something and I can actually start something is not there in German universities. And that is a little bit of a historical problem or an organizational problem. They want to be that, but the spirit is just not there. So the institute leaders and the university presidents and the the innovation departments of the university that should really, first of all, include that into the lectures, include that into the communication, and also create the infrastructure of startups to grow, because that most cases doesn't exist in German universities. The infrastructure for a startup to have a community within the university, not just in a co-working lab somewhere in the city, but within the university, to have a free space and like to be accepted as a startup in the university. And the problem that we had is, or many other startups have, is that as soon as you found a startup, you're industry. And of course, if public money goes into industry, that is not wanted or not allowed. So that's the problem right now. That once you're a startup, actually you need to pay for, like, for example, renting labs there or using space, or and that is not possible for a new startup. So this infrastructure, being welcomed, having space, free space, and having an incubator to grow is really missing.
Yeah, I see. So you'd like to see maybe some public funding to help incubate these startups when they're at an early stage?
I think there is a lot of public funding, but in the end, so to give you an example, we are producing hardware. So we need space, we need labs, we need either pilot space for building up small machines, maybe even using small machines. And right now, we need to do this in like collaboration with institutes where we say, could we use that? But officially, it's not allowed because we are industry, and actually they need to charge for that. But they could change the environment, the infrastructure. The university could do something there and allow startups to be there and to use this space and to make space for them.
I'll just take this chance to remind our digital audience that you can ask questions at any point in this conversation. We're talking to Anna Lamp, who's the CEO and founder of Traceless. Anna, I'm curious what you think your greatest challenge has been in founding your startup and bringing this material to the market.
So I think a great challenge is still the scaling. So you have a process, you have an idea, but when you want to enter the plastic market, then you need to be cheap. And the novelty of our process is really that on a large production scale, it is able to produce the cheap, but we need to come there. And also, so it's not, I don't know, we have a software solution and we just need to scale it by more downloads, and then we have revenue. So I think the business model is more complex than in software solutions or in some software solutions, and also it's a little slower than if you have something that you can scale by clicks. So that's a challenge. But on the other hand side, I think we are with the right topic in the right time, and we see a great demand for our product. We get a lot of inquiries for projects for the product. So I think we will tackle that challenge.
And what have you enjoyed most about founding a business?
What I really enjoyed is that when you found a business, you can create the company culture, and you can create how we communicate with each other, how we treat each other, what the values are. And that was something that in my previous experiences in industry, it's always given, right? So the company culture is given and the communication strategy is given. And that I liked.
Great. We have one question from our audience, which I think we just have time for before we finish. So if you'd like to ask now.
Yeah, hello. Thanks very much, Anna, for such an inspirational talk. I wanted to ask you a question. So you said that you have you have some competitors on the market. And when you're fighting such a big problem as plastic pollution, I'm wondering if there is some intention to kind of unite with other businesses, to connect with other businesses on fighting this problem together. or is it still a kind of a business question and you would like to compete with them instead of uniting with them and fighting this crisis together? Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a great question, because actually, as you said, that is not possible to do it alone. And on the long run, it will be necessary to join forces, definitely. So I think in the beginning phase, as all these competitive startups are right now, as we are as well, we of course need to find our way, need to scale, need to develop, and it's always also a matter of what's our business case, what are our trade secrets. But in the end, we can only win this if we join the forces. And as I already said, we are also speaking to all the competitive startups. And it's very funny, because in every conversation we see that actually the other startups, they could actually be clients for us. For example, taking our material and incorporating that into their material to add additional functionalities. So it's in the starting point of development, actually, more than competitiveness.
Where do you see yourself, Anna, in 5 years' time, and kind of how do you imagine the business will have grown by then?
So in 5 years of time, I wish to stand next to the big industry plant, of course, and everything's working, everything's running. And I really, in 5 years, we want to be a material producer, delivering the base material for the plastics industry and having this material in as many applications as possible that easily end up in the environment.
I hope that comes to happen for you. I think we've just about reached the end of our time today for this conversation, so thank you very much, Anna. We will be back again in 5 minutes with another guest, so you can stay on the Zoom call if you'd like to join us for that conversation. But we'll take a short break now for 5 minutes. Thanks, Anna.
Thanks a lot.